It's finally time to get back to a project that's near and dear to me, the 1903 A3 stock. And today specifically, we're going to be adding recessed double screw sling swivels, and we're going to be putting the first coats of finish on this stock. So let's jump into this one. I'd planned on finishing the stock before I did the big reveal, and the reason for that is because it just takes me so long to do projects. And I know here in the YouTube world, we're all used to, we look at a stock and then just magic, we have a finished stock. But that's in the YouTube world. Here in the real world, it takes us a while to do stuff. And this stock here is going to take me, I figure, 2 more months to finish this. I'm going to go with a boiled linseed oil finish on top of stain. I'm looking at, I don't know, 4 weeks just on the boiled linseed oil because it's 1 coat a week. That's a month right there. And I'm going to do the checkering on this. And the more time than I get to work on stuff, I'm going to guess another month on the checkering. So with the linseed oil taking so long, I need to get this thing going. I need to get it started because I plan on hunting with this rifle this year. It's going to be a rifle again shortly anyway. But this is something I thought y'all might enjoy seeing. It's not often we get to see the double screwed recessed sling studs being put on a stock. I mean, it's just aren't that popular anymore. This rifle though, it just seemed I had to do it for this stock. This is gonna, I've been impressed with this rifle. I can't begin to say how impressed I was with how this old rifle shot. And it is an old one. That doesn't mean it isn't a tack driver though. And this stock here, this is the stock off my Winchester Super Grade Featherweight. If you notice, it has the double screw recessed sling swivels on it. I always thought that's such a nice touch on the Super Grades. Well, this is never going to be a Super Grade stock. This is old military stock. Somebody did an exceptional job on the woodwork, getting it to such a functional stock, and they did a wonderful job on the metal work also, bluing everything on the action and barrel. Somebody with some skills at some point in the history of this rifle did some work to it, and it showed. So I want to build on what they've already done, and I want this to be the finest stock I can make it, even though this is an old military stock, and it's never going to be this. But it can still be outstanding functionally, and I can try to make it look good. And with that said, Winchester's always had these on the Super Grades, at least as far back as I'm aware of. Well, guess where Winchester got that from? That's right, the 1903 stocks. The 1903s have had double screws on the sling swivels on the buttstock since the beginning. And you 1903 experts, correct me if I'm wrong, but the early 1903, the actual 1903 Springfields, made at Springfield Armory, those sling swivels were actually recessed, just like this. Now, this is a 1903 A3. I don't see any sign of there ever having been a recess here. But I know they took a lot of shortcuts on the 1903 A3s just to make them easier to produce, because this was produced during World War II. So yeah, they were trying to be efficient. But they did use the double screws, and the screw holes are still here. So yeah, we got to do it for this stock. So let me get started on this, and what we're going to do, we're going to mark our location, we're going to break out the chisels and get the recess done. And that'll be the last step we need to do to this wood, and then we're ready to start putting some stain on here. And I want to get that started this weekend also. I mentioned before that I was trying to get this 1903 A3 stock here to match this Winchester Super Grade Featherweight stock as close as I could. Well, there's only so much I can do. There's a lot of differences between the stocks, but I do want it to match it as far as feel especially. But the differences, we can really start to see those now because I wanted to use this Winchester stock as a guide as far as the location of the sling swivels. They're too different, but I can still use it as a guide. I mentioned before how short the length of pull was on 1903 Springfields and 1903 A3 and A4s, and that's apparent here. So in the case of these, the sling swivels, if we match up where the triggers are and the pistol grips, there's a lot of difference in the location of these sling swivels. And with the 1903 A3, I want the rear swivel to go over top of where the existing holes were, just to cover those up. So that seems like a good place for that. And on the end here, we're also going to be shorter. So the overall distance between the sling swivels on the A3 stock is just going to be shorter than this super grade stock. But that's okay, and we can see about, especially on the end. They came, it looks like half an inch from the ebony to the start of the sling swivel, and we'll do the same here. So let's get this marked, and then we can get started removing some wood. So let's get these hole locations marked with a punch. And I like to start with a small punch just to get a really defined point, and then use this larger one with a larger radius. Now for the forends, and on the super grade, they were about 5/8 of an inch from the ebony forend, or plastic in that case, but that's what they were imitating. So we want to be about 5/8 as well. Here for the start of the stud. And I don't know that that matters, especially on this, but my thinking is the further away from the end, the less we risk any splitting or something when we start to chisel this material out. Now to match up a drill bit to the screw, and I thought it was interesting. The screws for the forend are fine threads, whereas the screws for the rear sling swivel are wood screws. I've seen a lot of different rifles over the years where the front sling stud had a bolt on the backside, but these didn't come with a bolt. And this is also, there's a channel in the stock here that they did in the 1903s and A3s to lighten up the stock, so they removed some material and just left the channel. I filled that in with acrylic glass whenever I put the ebony forend on here to give me something solid to anchor into, because this area is very thin, and I knew I was going to have some kind of sling swivel, some type, probably a stud. But okay, I don't know how well the fine threads are going to bite into the acrylic glass. Probably a lot better than wood. Or if I'm going to need to come up with some kind of bolt on the backside. So we're just going to drill it, see what we get. If I need to do a bolt on the backside, then we'll just countersink the backside and make it work. But for now, we'll just drill this and see what we get. And to find out what screw you need, just hold up your screw to the thread and some kind of light, and the screw should cover up the shank, but you should see threads extending on the outside. Another good way to do this when you really don't want to mess up is just find a block of wood like I'm going to do, drill a hole and see how the screw fits in it. I think we found our drill size. And I want to make sure this drill is perpendicular to this wood. And we have our holes. Let's do the buttstock. And let's check the screws for this buttstock in case it's a larger shank diameter and we need a larger drill bit, which it's looking like it is. It's much larger. We ran into our first issue, as so often happens with such projects. The drill bit walked right over into the existing holes. I could have started with a smaller drill, maybe got a hole established, and then went to a little bit larger size for the screws. But I think that's just going to happen no matter what. All right, but stuff happens. So we got several options here, and keep in mind the sling swivel is going to cover up a lot of this. All right, I think what we're going to do is we're going to fill this up with some wood putty. We could use epoxy, acrylglass, any number of things. I think the wood putty is going to work really well. Oh, and this just happens to be walnut. Imagine that. And this wood putty here, not all wood putty hardens. This hardens. So we're going to fill in these holes with this wood putty, let it harden, and then we're going to come back at this with the drill press, try to lock this in place to keep anything from moving, and that should take care of this. All right, I think that'll do us. We're going to let that sit overnight, but we'll go ahead and cut the recesses for the floor in tonight, get that out of the way, and then that'll be one less thing to do for tomorrow. And we can make a call on these machine screws as to whether or not they're going to hold. I'd rather these be wood screws, but I think they're going to be just fine. Now, let's mount this, and then we'll trace the outline of it. Mark the exact outline without worrying about this moving. And just out of curiosity, it appears to be fine threads on the Winchester also, with probably some kind of nut in the end. It's definitely countersunk. Interesting. And with everything marked, we can start removing some material. I'm just going to use a chisel, and I'm going to use a gouge for the radius. And just like that, we're done. Okay, it wasn't just like that. That was about as slow and tedious as it appeared to be. As a matter of fact, when we started this, that was 2 days ago. And then I'm just now getting back out here to wrap this up today. And when the drill walked over into the existing holes here, I ended up having to make this little jig right here. And what it did, okay, this jig sits on top, and then I clamped it in place, and I had 2 holes drilled exactly where I needed them. And then I came in with the drill through here, and it all worked really well. I didn't film it because honestly, I wasn't sure that it was going to turn out as well as it did, but it worked out great. And this stud here, it did cover up the existing holes. I can say I have just a little bit of touch up left to do on this, but that's pretty much it. And it turned out nice. I'm right pleased. It was worth the effort. I had planned on us also doing the first coat of stain today, but this ended up taking a lot longer than I was thinking it was going to, which my projects usually do. That's okay, we got it, but we're not going to get to the stain today. That'll be next time if the Lord's willing, and we'll finally get that first coat of stain on here and get to see what this rifle, this stock's going to look like. And something I've been thinking about, I could just do the whole thing in one solid coat of, I'm using red mahogany stain. And I could go over the ebony 4-inch tip and pistol grip cap with that. And it's still going to stand out, but I just don't think it's going to pop like I want it to. It'd give it a more uniform appearance in the stain. But I think what I'm going to do is mask off the ebony when I stain it. Use masking tape. And then just do the walnut in the stain. And then the ebony is just going to be a straight, pure boiled linseed oil finish. And the whole stock's going to be finished in boiled linseed oil. It'll go over the stain on the walnut also. But I'm worried that the stain's going to give that ebony just a slight red tint also. Even though it'll still be really dark. But that's just not quite what I want. I want that ebony to really stand out for what it is, which is ebony. And I could use an ebony stain over this that would really make it just absolute pitch black. But I love that this piece of ebony has just a little bit of light colored grain showing in it. That's probably actually considered a defect in ebony. I'm sure the most prized ebony is just pure black, but that shows this is real. I like that. So I think that's what we're going to do. We'll just stain the walnut here. Yeah. If any of you have any experience staining an ebony 4-inch tip, comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. There isn't exactly a lot of information out there on that. Anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed that. And I hope that was pretty interesting for you to get to see the double screw recessed Sling Swivels. You just don't see that on rifles much anymore, but it's a nice touch to a rifle, at least I think so. And it is functional. I mean, this is a secure connection. This is not just pulling out. So I'm happy with that one. Okay, tune in next time and we will, Lord willing, get that first coat of stain on here. So God bless, and y'all have a wonderful day and a wonderful week.